Something that I've been thinking a lot about lately is my childhood, my young adulthood, up to the present moment. Kind of doing a life review, I guess you would say. I'm in a much better space today than I ever have been before. So I want to continue my healing and growth journey. And I think a big part of that is looking at some of my past behaviors, my past patterns, healthy, unhealthy, and kind of like facing them head on so that I can move on and have the best life possible. And for me, I think I came into this life with some unhealthy patterns just from other generations, my parents and beyond. And then a big part of it for me was the fact that I had a father who was physically present in my home, but not emotionally available, like not even a little bit. I never really got to know who my father was, unfortunately, because I think he was a really loving and caring man who has lost himself. But I used to wonder what was wrong with me. I mean, there must be something wrong with me if I had a parent in my home that wasn't wanting to spend time with me. That's just how my brain worked. So I felt very broken. I felt like I said, something was wrong with me. And I kind of got stuck in that sadness, depression. I kind of started to take it on as an identity. And I came into life from that perspective. I just felt very sad, very, very sad. And then, of course, when my sister was diagnosed, something I've talked about before, I chose to not need anything from my family. I didn't want to make anything harder or more difficult for my family members. So I pulled into my shell a little bit tighter and decided that, anything I needed, I could provide for myself, which of course was not true. So as I distanced myself from my family, I think I wanted any little bit, any scrap of attention that I could get from anywhere else. So what happened is I started settling for even the smallest crumb from people, which led to some really unhealthy situations, if I'm being honest. I really decided that I had no standards, no expectations from anyone else. Like I said, any little scrap of attention from someone else was just fine. And I think I've heard since, we show people how to treat each other, how they should treat us. Sorry. We show people how to treat us based on how we treat ourselves. And I treated myself really poorly. I thought very little of myself, like I said, there was something wrong with me, right? So I came to expect very little from my friendships, from romantic relationships, whatever. So, and I was awfully afraid of disappointing people. I didn't want to not have the answers for people, not agree with them. I kind of became a chameleon. As I talked about earlier today, I kind of began to learn how to read people and situations and show up in those situations as I thought people expected me to. I never wanted to disappoint anyone. So, based on who I was with, I would show up as a different version of myself. So, one, I never fully learned who I was as a person because I never allowed the room for that. It never felt safe to truly be who I was. I was always showing up for someone else like I thought they wanted me to be. So I began to lose pieces of myself, I believe, along the way, and constantly shifting my identity. It was very confusing. Not a good thing. So anyway, I think along the way, as I said, I was settling for crumbs. I chose to do the things that I thought that I was supposed to do. If you ask me how I ended up as a nurse, I couldn't really give you a specific answer, just kind of going along with what I thought I was supposed to do. So anyway, my first actual real relationship in college, if I'm being honest, they came out of jealousy. One of my friends thought this guy was cute, so I wanted to be the one to win him over. And that's how I started my relationship with my now ex-husband. We were in college, so of course we were drinking a lot, having fun, and it was fun at the time. But I don't know that we really connected on any deep level. I mean, he was nice enough, but really had no aspirations for a big life, any big dreams, and he was more than happy to let me support him financially. No real need to do anything more with himself than what he was doing, which was a very low-paying job that he was comfortable in. He liked his boss, and that was good enough for him. Again, going along, you do the things. You are with somebody long enough. The next step is, marriage, and then getting a house, and then probably a dog and a kid, that kind of thing. And I went along with the marriage and the house part. We got some cats, no dog, and thank God no baby. But as our relationship progressed, we were together for quite a while, 10 years or so. I think I lost myself to him. I never allowed myself to have an opinion of things. And even when I did, it's what do you want to eat? I don't know. Defer to the other person, right? So along the way, I continue to lose bits and pieces of myself, feeling defeated, but not really knowing what to do. And I kind of just thought that everyone lived that way. It was pretty bad, honestly. By the end, I would come home from work and I would hang out until I heard my now ex coming home. And when I knew he was coming home, I'd jump into bed and take a nap. And then he would make dinner and wake me up. I would eat dinner, and then I would just go right back to bed. We really weren't interacting. And when we were interacting, it was just drinking till I blacked out. So not a great way to live my life, but it was something that I was willing to do. I didn't really have any other options. I had no expectations really from life. I set the bar very low. For myself. In my nursing job, I was, doing fairly well, but I kind of had already started hating that as well. Just nothing in my life was bringing me any joy, I guess is the bottom line, but I was willing to just keep going on because I thought that's what I was supposed to do. And then I think the catalyst for me leaving him was my now boyfriend. Came back into my life. We had dated briefly in junior high. I, always hoped for, someday with him, and that day arrived. And so we got together, and I quickly left my husband and got divorced very quickly. But that didn't really solve the problem. It did in some ways, because when I left my husband, I had hope for the future. I guess that was the most positive thing that came out of it. But, I was going through a divorce. I was, I think, 26 at the time, and I didn't really understand. Like, I had had some life lessons, but this was a huge lesson for me. It's very stressful, very, very stressful. I uprooted my life, was, worried about the divorce. We had a house. He was supposed to take over the house, get a mortgage, but I got that call at work. He's like, I got denied a mortgage and the house is yours. And yeah, so that's a story for another day. So a lot of stress on my plate. And so the coping skill that I had learned in life, the thing that was fun to me in that moment was going out and drinking and having a good time. It was almost like a second adolescent. time for me. You know, I had a lot of responsibility in my marriage, you know, a homeowner, paying all the bills, being the responsible one. So it was kind of fun for a while to let loose and have some fun with new people, new experiences, that kind of thing. I can remember, though, like sacrificing myself to try to keep this new relationship alive. There were a lot of unhealthy behaviors going on from day one, and simply in the fact that we were always drinking. It's just not a healthy environment. So as we went on, you know, I think I kind of started to learn about myself, but basically continued to sacrifice who I was to keep our relationship alive. Not to minimize our relationship, we've had a lot of great times. I think we have a lot of fun together. We have a lot of similarities, but our interests are pretty different. I think I was just so consumed in my career as a nurse, being miserable in it. That was a lot of what we were talking about. Again, being the financially irresponsible one in a relationship and just taking all my stress and kind of shoving it down into my body and surviving, if I'm being honest. A lot of blaming other people in the relationship while also not taking responsibility for myself and my actions. And, you know, it's easy to think you're perfect and you're the only one who's not doing the wrong thing, which isn't the truth, obviously, but it's easy to get caught up in that and blame everybody else. And really, the catalyst was me doing the work on myself. I know I've said this before, but I'm going to probably say it a million times. As I began to learn about myself, who I really am, a lot of the things I've been doing to shove my actual feelings down, and realizing that a lot of the things that I did was just to survive. I'm allowing myself to feel safe in who I really want to be, allowing myself to dream a little bit bigger, step out of my box. I began to feel safe, like expressing who I really am. I began to not feel afraid. And that has been the biggest thing, I think. I will actually share the real things now and not be afraid of how someone will react to that. That's their problem, not mine. I need to continue to share my truth. And if you like it, fantastic. You're here for the ride. If you don't, then I don't care. We can work on it. We can have a conversation about it, but no one's gonna prevent me from sharing my real feelings anymore. And that has been huge, honestly. I remember, I don't know, maybe 2 months ago, my boyfriend and I had a conversation and he said, "You are finally the person that I always knew was there. You have finally let your armor down." That was powerful. I knew that I had been doing the work and I was feeling good and things had really changed in my life, but to have that validation from someone who's known me that long and who is so important in my life, that was pretty cool, pretty amazing, pretty impactful. So yeah, I'm still on this journey. I'm still figuring out who I am, who I'm becoming, who I want to be. I have some big dreams, but I feel like people are actually attracted to that and are attracted when I'm actually being honest and authentic. I think people have come to expect me to be the person who just kind of goes along and gets it done and doesn't question things. But if you're looking for that person is gone. I now have high standards for my life, and it's actually a beautiful thing. I think my boyfriend respects me much, much more now. Our relationship has never been better. And I think it's because we're just having these real conversations that we've never held space for before. So if you're in the same boat, I see you. You're not alone. You're not broken. You're just stuck in a pattern of doing the things that you needed to do to survive along the way. But I also want to remind you that there is hope. There is a better way forward. And if you're curious as to how I got to where I am today, I would love to have a conversation with you. Even if you're not curious about how I got to where I am, I'd love to have a conversation. I'm here to help as many people as I possibly can live the life of their dreams. So ready to support you in any way I can. If you're still here, thank you so much for listening. I hope something in here has served you. I hope you're having an amazing day, and I'll talk to you soon.